Well, hello good peoples of the internet and welcome to this here my channel. My name is Kenneth and I'll be your guide throughout this journey into the world of supernatural. Now, whether you're brand new or considering watching the show but are feeling a little bit daunted by the prospect of watching 327 episodes spanning 15 seasons for this particular series, or if you're already knowledgeable about the world of supernatural but are wanting to freshen up your memory a bit with the most important plot beats of this show, well, fear not. I've got a cheat sheet for you, or a roadmap if you will. With that being said, this particular video we're going to talk about every episode in season 1 and affording them a rating, which is the following: either M for mandatory, R for recommended, G for good, or N for next please, because there's nothing to see there. Alright, with that being said, let's jump right in with episode 1, Pilot. Obviously, this one I'm going to rate it as M, mandatory. If you're going to start watching a show, might as well start with episode 1, right? Right. That being said, it might not be the best episode of the bunch, but it's a good one, and obviously you're gonna get loads of information that's going to be pertinent further down the road. So with that being said, let's move on to episode 2, Wendigo. This one I'm going to class it as G for good. I mean, it's competently made and all that, but it's not important to further the plot, so you can skip it. You're not gonna miss anything apart from one particular sentence that is near and dear to many fans, but if you're watching the show with the episode recap in front of it, you're going to hear it again and again and again, so you're still not gonna miss anything if you skip this particular installment of the show. Moving on to episode 3, Dead in Water. This one I'm also going to rate as G for good. I mean, it's competently made and all that again, but it does not further the plot, so you can skip it. The only interesting thing about this particular episode is that you get a little bit of development with the character of Dean, so if you want to understand Dean a little bit more, see another facet of his personality, you can give this one a shot. But if you're rushing through, or if you've already watched the show and are just here to freshen up your memory a bit, like I said in the beginning, you can skip that one. You're not gonna miss much. With that being said, let's move on to episode 4, Phantom Traveler. This one I'm also gonna rate as G, meaning good. Again, it doesn't further the plot, so you can skip it. There's 2 funny beats with Dean in that one, so if you're willing to laugh a little, you can watch it. But apart from that, you're not gonna miss much. If I remember correctly, there might be a certain place in that particular episode where the boys are getting a little bit more professional about the job, so maybe there's that to make it a little bit more interesting for you if you want to take a bit more time and not just rush through everything that's very plot driven. With that being said, let's move on to episode 5, Bloody Mary. This one I'm going to rate it as M for mandatory. It furthers the plot, plus it's kind of into the meat and potato of season 1, which is more about urban legends and stuff. So with Bloody Mary, you're kind of right on target. It's a good episode. You should watch it. You're not gonna regret it. Moving on to episode 6, Skins. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video, but if you're watching it on streaming platforms, for season 1, you're not gonna hear the same music that when the episode were broadcasted, or if you're watching it on disc form, whether Blu-ray or DVD. Why is that? Well, simply because streaming wasn't a thing back then, so no one thought of buying the rights to the music for streaming platforms, because it didn't exist. So yeah, I don't know why they didn't buy those rights afterwards, but apparently they decided not to and they replaced the music. Why am I saying that? Well, simply because there's the intro sequence of this particular episode that's matched with one of the great classics of psychedelic rock, and yeah, you're going to miss that if you're streaming it. So if you can get a DVD box set or a Blu-ray, or if you can get the episode by any other particular means, I'm not going to mention that, please do it, because for that intro alone, it's very interesting. Oh yeah, and I forgot, this one I'm going to rate as R. There's a little bit of a twist in that particular episode, plus the intro sequence is very interesting, so you should watch it. if you've got a little bit of time. That being said, let's go to episode 7, Hookman. This one also I'm going to rate as R. It was one of my favorite back in the days, and yeah, it's a good one. It doesn't really further the plot of this particular season, but yeah, if you are here for the urban legend like I was back in the day, this one is a very good one for you. Plus, if I remember correctly, there's a little tidbit of information about the creation of the salt rounds for the shotguns. So if that whets your appetite, do give it a watch. That being said, let's move on to episode 8, Bugs. And as you can probably see by my face, this one is going to get our first N rating for next please, because this one is a bad one. I mean, the writing isn't that bad, but the premise of the episode is bad, and even the creator of the show, Eric Kripke, kind of regrets pushing that idea forward. He says that it shouldn't have been made, and it's kind of a joke in the fandom. So yeah, skip that one, you're not missing anything. Moving on to episode 9, Home. This one is rated M. It's a very important episode. You get backstories for the boys, plus it furthers the plot a hell of a lot. I'm not gonna tell you too much about this particular episode. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, it's a very good episode. You should watch it, definitely. Moving to episode 10. Asylum. This one I'm going to rate it as R. I mean, if you like haunted asylum things, this one should be for you. It's very good, but it doesn't really move the plot of this particular season, so you can skip it. You're not missing much, apart from that creepy ambiance of haunted asylum. Moving on to episode 11, Scarecrow. This one I'm rating it as M. It's a very good one. There's a little bit of development between the boys, and we're introduced to a new character that's going to be important further down the line. So for that reason alone, you should definitely watch that episode. Moving on to episode 12, Faith. This one I'm going to rate as R. I almost forgot the rating again. Like I said, rating it as R. It's a very good episode, and the premise is a fun one, I think. Plus, there's another installment of music that's very important for, this time it's shock rock or occult rock, if you will. But again, if you're watching it on a streaming platform, you're not going to get the ultimate experience. So maybe do try and find another mean to watch that episode than regular streaming services, because you're going to miss that little tidbit that was very cool when I first watched this particular episode. Moving on to episode 13, Route 666. This one, I'm rating it as N. Next, please. It's not very good. Again, the premise of this one is kind of bad. I'm gonna sum it up with only 2 words, racist truck. If that sounds interesting to you, or you're willing to have a laugh, check it, but otherwise skip it. You're not missing anything. It doesn't serve the plot at all of this season, so you're not missing anything if you skip that one. Moving on to episode 14, Nightmare. This one I'm rating it as M. It drives the plot line for this particular season and season 2 as well a little bit, so it's a very important episode. I remember that when I first watched it, I found it very interesting. Now that I do know it, however, I don't feel like it's a great episode, so if you've already seen the show, you could probably skip it. At least that's my opinion, but if you've never seen the show, it's a very important one, so don't skip it. Moving on to episode 15, The Benders. This one, your mileage may vary if you're already knowledgeable about the show, but I'm going to rate it as N. The premise is just not interesting for me, and it's not important for the plot of the season, so you can skip it. You're not gonna miss anything again. Moving on to episode 16, Shadow. This one I'm rating it as M. It's very important. I don't want to tell you too much, not to ruin any surprise that you can have with this particular episode, but yeah, it drives the plot forward a hell of a lot, and obviously it tends to happen in Supernatural when you're getting to the later installment of a season that those are very heavily plot driven, so you should watch Shadow. Moving to episode 17, Hell House. This one I'm having a little bit of difficulty to rate it. It could be an R, because it's a very good episode and it's a fun one, but maybe it's an M, because there's two characters that are going to be introduced in there that have become fan favorites and have come back in other seasons. So if you want to know those particular blokes, you should watch that episode. I don't recall them being important for any plot-driven episode in other seasons, so you could skip it if you're in a rush, but if you want to have a little bit of a laugh and get to know those two blokes, like I said, you should watch that particular installment of the show. Moving on to episode 18, Something Wicked. This one I'm rating it as R. It's a good one. There's loads of interesting elements for the backstories of the boys. We've got some scenes of young Sam and young Dean intercut between present day moments in that particular episode. So yeah, you should watch that one if you've got a little bit of time, although it doesn't further the plot a hell of a lot. So make of that what you will. Maybe it's plot driven a bit because you gain backstory info, but in the grand scheme of things you don't learn that much. So you could skip it, but you could also watch it. Moving on to episode 19, Provenance. This one I'm rating it as R. It's not very plot driven, but it's a very cool one. I remember that I enjoyed it quite a lot when I first saw it, and even in subsequent viewings it holds up well. So if you're willing to give it a go, do give it a go. You're probably gonna like it. Moving to episode 20, Dead Man's Blood. This one is rated M. It's a mandatory one. Obviously we're introduced to new I don't know if I should say it if you've never seen the show, but if you've already seen the show, you kind of know what we're going to be introduced with in that particular installment. So yeah, definitely you have to watch this one to get the story of Supernatural as a whole, not just this particular season. With that being said, let's move to episode 21, Salvation. This one is rated M, again for mandatory. We're in the final run here. This one and the next one are practically part 1 and part 2. So obviously episode 22, Devil's Trap, as well is rated M for mandatory. Both those three last episode for that season are chef's kiss level. I love them. They're very, very good. We get introduced to a new character in Devil's Trap or Salvation. I'm not that sure because I haven't watched the series just prior to making this video. I think it's in Devil's Trap that we're introduced to that character that's going to be very prevalent in upcoming seasons. So yeah. And with that, we've reached the end of this particular cheat sheet. I hope that you've enjoyed it and gained some information, and I'm going to put up a card at the end with every ranking for the episodes just so that you can see it quick, and I'm also going to display it in the description down below. So I hope that you had a great time watching this particular video of mine. It's my first one, I'm a bit nervous and all that, so I do hope that you'll forgive me if this wasn't perfect, but I do my best. And I'll see you with another installment for the cheat sheet of season 2. See you soon. Bye, hunters.